comic citizen. I represent the Flower Party. And in my party, we believe that every citizen should have a comic that's affordable, accessible, and equal. A vote for me is a vote for a comic in every bag. I want you.
Hello, my fellow comic book readers. Today, we begin the end of a long journey. We begin what we have struggled for the last 4 years. The increasing of comic book prices has driven many of us to lower our pull list. But together, if you vote for me this election, we can end that practice. We can lower the prices of a standard issue and make trades more affordable for libraries to help kids in need to learn. Remember this election, a vote for me is a vote for a comic in every hand. Are you tired of voting between the lesser of two evils? Do you think to yourself, it couldn't get any worse? We're here to say, yes. Yes, it can. Today on Bag and Boarded, me and my wife are going to be discussing various presidential elections in comic books and the candidates that they have put forth. Now, for me, the earliest candidates I can remember come from the 1970s, all the way up to modern day. Comics have dabbled and given us potential presidential candidates that have become cautionary tales. They've become tales of optimism, and in some cases, they're just straight mockery of the presidential process.
Satire. The word is satire.
Today, we're going to give you 3.5 choices for candidate and eventual president of the United States of America.
Prez, Rickard.
Gary Callahan.
Beth Ross.
Howard the Duck. If you are looking to yourself as this video is rolling now and going, I know one of those names and he comes from a bad 80s movie, that's okay.
Don't be alarmed. We will explain further.
We're going to start with the earliest presidential comic book candidate I can think of was Prez Rickard. Now, he is a 1973-74 character created by Joe Simon, who helped create Captain America, for those of you counting. And he is in direct response to the Voters Act in, I want to say, 71, where all of a sudden 18-year-olds could vote. And he took it a little bit further and go, well, what if 18-year-olds could run for office?
Yes.
Senator, president, and it's a 4-issue series that, I won't lie, I can't say I hate it, but I can definitely tell you it's of its time. But Prez becomes a running character throughout the DC universe. He has a later appearance in a Supergirl comic. Most people will probably know the name from a Sandman comic. And
yeah, that's why I first discovered him, was in Sandman.
To be honest, that's where I first discovered him.
Okay, yeah.
I think the character just seemed too interesting to have been created for Sandman. Nothing against Neil Gaiman, but Gaiman reused a lot of characters.
Okay.
Cain and Abel was from House of Mysteries. I mean, Sandman himself is a reimagining. So, Gaiman loved playing in other people's sandboxes. He loved messing around in that aspect. And then he shows up in Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. I believe actually he showed up in Dark Knight Strikes Back, but I've avoided that comic.
Well, I was introduced to him first in the Sandman issue. I think it was volume 8, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So this character goes by Prez, short for president. Last name is Rickard. And he was pretty much born to be president. As a child, he knew the Pledge of Allegiance by heart. And he didn't just say it, he felt it.
I love that they emphasize that in the comic. Because no kid ever felt it.
Right, he felt every single word. You almost feel from the writing that he got a little teary-eyed every time he cited the Pledge of Allegiance. Like he was making a new oath every morning in his classroom. He became mayor of his town. You know, he worked up the ranks of the political hierarchy to where, like you were saying, that they eventually changed the voting age, not only to 18, but they could actually have an office at the age of 18. And then eventually, they lower the age of the presidency from 35 to 18. So as I was reading this, it just shows how important your local elections are. Yeah, it's not all about the presidential race, but you make real change with local elections.
Yeah.
But they just have to create this world where 18-year-olds are pretty much running the show.
You know what I love about that though is that he, in the original series, and they touch about it in the Sandman, is that he gets noticed because the corporations that are looking to control youth voters. Boss Smiley's a running character throughout all of this. He's like a guy with a smiley face. I don't know what it is with political cartoons and smiley faces, but they get brought up a lot in this episode. Is that he needs somebody he can mold, and he automatically goes, we need somebody who had a tag that could pull the people in. Like Mussolini, he got the trains on time. Well, Prez got all the clocks in his town to run at the exact same second.
Oh, I forgot about that part. Yeah, he was a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
person, yeah.
but in the original 70s series, it was because we need something that can make the people feel more corporate, like Mussolini. Like you automatically go for something like that. It's just a weird. The 70s one is kind of dated, but it has its
purpose. It has its
right. And we're talking about this, and we have Boss Smiley.
Right. Who was the prince of that world, right?
At least in the
Sandman, in the Sandman version.
He's this guy who wants everything to run his way.
He's the power behind the presidency.
Corporate America. He gets in that because he has like two forms in Sandman, where he's this corporate overlord, but he's really like a deity. In the end, I love the Jesus imagery in that page where he's got like the white suit, and he goes from kind of like a dingy yellow smiley
after
face.
Prez died.
Yeah.
Yeah, and went to heaven.
An assassination attempt. So I mean, politics in comics can sometimes push people off. I guess like in our first episode when I was talking about how I didn't realize environmental issues and turtles, like as I've grown up and gone back, I realized just how many comics had political issues.
Right. Like, they just had comics as a way of conveying a message to the reader or whatever point that the writer is trying to convey. And I think in this particular issue of Prez, like I said, to me, I saw the importance of local elections, the importance of voting, and if you really want to make a change, you have to get out there and get your hands dirty.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and you do sacrifice a lot in public.
Yeah, I mean, he can't do whatever he wants anymore. I believe in the Sandman thing, after he's voted and he moves on because an assassination attempt, he kind of wanders the American wasteland. It's kind of feel like where he fixes clocks anonymously.
Oh, and I love too, and the Golden Boy, how he became this legend, where people even had different way. People even have a different way of documenting how he actually died. There were so many different stories that developed.
His
he
quest
became larger than life. He really
his
became
quest
larger
for the
than life.
Watchmaker.
Yes.
The But I mean, Sandman obviously is more of a fantastical tale and a fantasy rooted. It's a retelling of this guy looking for Prez, this person who wants to make this not utopian. He understands that utopians aren't going to be there, but this idea where everybody's treated fairly.
Yes. He really did believe
that
his own hype. He actually believed it.
Yeah.
And I can't even say it was hype. Like he just had this inner morality value system where he truly believed and felt that everyone should be treated equally, and he wanted to have a better world, and he was willing to do the work to create this better world. Not just a lot of talk or ads or false empty promises. One of the scenes that really spoke to me in Golden Boy was the scene where President Richard Nixon, comes to visit Prez while he's in the hospital. And
after the assassination attempt.
after the assassination attempt. And I think his wife was killed in that scene, right?
In that scene.
In that incident.
For the Sandman story, yes.
And President Nixon gave Prez these 3 rules that he wanted him to consider. And the first rule was, nothing that you do in the White House matters. He goes, get that first and foremost.
I do enjoy that.
Remember that? And then the second rule was, you're going to be the worst president while you're serving office no matter what. And in about 20 years, they'll look back and realize how much they should have appreciated you or something like that.
Which is rule 3.
Rule 3. And then the other one was, while you're there, try to get as much power as you can because power brings money or something of that nature. I was like, oh my gosh.
Okay, for this story, this has to do with I want to say it was the 72 election in Golden Boy.
Okay.
Which means that Nixon knows he's on the way out. He has no longer been chosen to be president. His backers have decided to go against him.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah, because when he comes to the hospital room, he says, you know that you're gonna be the next president, right? When I read Golden Boy, especially with that conversation between President Nixon and Prez, it correlates to what we see in modern day elections, to where we'll look at a president that held office 10, 15 years ago that people absolutely hated. And then when they have something
I have a feeling I know what president you're talking about.
Everyone's saying, oh my gosh, I actually miss President so-and-so. And you're like, wow, that's crazy.
I can't believe you missed that person.
That's crazy. That's humanity, right? When you don't know how bad things can get until it actually happens, which causes you to reflect and goes, wow, I really miss those days when things were.
I think one of the things that often gets overlooked is nothing is new again. Like Golden Boy was written, I want to say it's towards the end of Sandman's run, so it had to be 93, 94 probably, maybe a little bit later than that. I'd have to relook up the actual cover date, but like this wasn't a new thought. Like we always act like, well, the nostalgia goggles factor.
Yeah.
Wow, it was better when I was a kid. It was worse when I was a kid. But we have these same continuous arguments. It's just kind of this idea that there's so many things that are so...
Like cynical?
That might be...
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah.
But it really is ideas that we keep going back to these same...
It's a cycle.
Yeah, it's very...
cycle.
Very cycle-oriented.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you're going to see in our picks today. Is that it makes you, if anything, I hope this makes you question all candidates. I don't advocate jumping into anything blindly, and never push to the side anything that makes you feel a little worried about a character moment.
Yeah. Investigate and research.
So, do you want to introduce our next presidential candidate?
The Smiler.
Gary Callahan. Gary Callahan is introduced to the readers in Transmetropolitan as a man who likes Ulysses. So he's this agglomeration of like RFK, JFK, but in reality he's basically, I believe I was told he was based off Tony Blair. But he's this man who's willing to say anything to become president. His sole purpose is to become president because he wants that aspect of power.
And his smile is so exaggerated. It's actually scary and a bit unnerving.
Yeah.
I think.
I think when Spider Jerusalem first gets introduced to him, he's like, oh my god, he's alive. It moved.
It's just... And I think that particular writing just speaks to another side of politics where there is a lot of pompous and just insincerity.
I honestly think so. I mean, we've all looked in at our elections and gone, well, how does this person really represent us? But sometimes, like in Callahan's case, it's not so much that he doesn't represent us, it's the people around him represent us. Or the person that they're against really doesn't represent us. Because Callahan goes against a character that Spider Jerusalem in a previous election had destroyed, to the point that even his own children had used the name that Jerusalem had come up for him, which is the Beast. And he's very much a Nixon archetype. This rough and tough, like, I'll do whatever I want as long as 51% of the people are happy with what I'm doing.
Right.
And for those, Transmetropolitan is a political story. It starts off rough. You get more in tune for the first, like, 2 trades if you're going to read it through that. The classic trades, I know they're doing complete collections now. So I think through the first 13 issues, it is more world building aspects. So you get this idea that it's very similar to where we are, but at the same time very different. I know it took you a couple times to get through Transmetropolitan.
It did. I have to be honest. It was something that I didn't automatically connect to, and so it took me a few reads to I understand the characters and get through the storylines.
Yeah. I don't even want to know if I say I still connect to it. I think it's more disturbing.
There's certain elements of it that you can relate to or understand.
Yeah, I guess you could go that route, but at the same time, I've said this before, Spider Jerusalem is the protagonist of the series, but he is not the hero of the series by any stretch.
Not even.
What really makes me laugh, especially with politics and comics, it seems to me, and I wonder if this is going to change in later years, but right now, we either have politics and comics that are very much affected by the 40s. So you have a lot of social movements, you have a lot of movements against hate groups. I mean, the current award-winning Superman versus the Klan is a good point, but that's actually a retelling of a radio program that happened in the 40s. So this is nothing new. But I've noticed in political comics that happened since the 70s on is that Nixon is really hated. He is an integral part. Like he is, you got Nixon for Prez. You've got Nixon as represented in Transmetropolitan. Nixon's definitely chosen for our final piece on this is Howard the Duck. But like it's just funny, like 60s politics have really shaped the direction as a country, as a world we've gone.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. And smiley faces. At least in cartoons.
Yes.
In comics.
Yeah.
Smiley faces are evil. As we've moved on from the Smiler, because if we talk anything more about him, we give up too much of the story. And I recommend reading Transmetropolitan at least once. It can be edgy. It can be juvenile. But, I've seen other things that were called edgy and juvenile, and that's how they become standards.
And what's life without that?
Exactly.
Really? Quite boring.
I recommend Derek Robertson's art. Look in the backgrounds if you ever give it a chance to read it, because those are just as much part of the story. But as I said, moving on, we're going to our next candidate.
Beth Ross.
Beth Ross.
Beth Ross.
She's a newer candidate. She's actually basically a reimagining of Prez.
Right. In fact, the comic is called
Prez.
Prez. Right.
2016.
Fast forward.
Yes. We've moved on from the 70s and the 90s, and now we're here back in modern day times. So, how did you like Beth Ross?
To be honest, I just read Beth Ross yesterday. And it took me a sec. I said, wait a minute, Beth Ross. I said, is that like Betsy Ross?
Yes, yeah.
You're like, yeah. I said, it was meant to make that connection. I said, oh, okay. It makes a bit more sense now. So, this is where it introduces you to just how ridiculous elections actually can be.
That's
like,
saying something.
why do we even have them?
Okay.
It's like some type of twisted game to make the people believe they have some type of real power in their lives. That's the insight I got from reading Prez.
Alright, once again, we have Boss Smiley as a villain, an antagonist. He is, as they put it in the 1973 comic, we don't play the game, we are the game. How did she get elected as president in this comic?
I've only read the first volume.
It pretty much covers it,
Did
isn't
it
it?
cover it? Oh, I remember now. She was working in a corn dog hut, right?
Yes.
Something. And so she was cleaning this grill, and her hair got caught in the
grease
deep
trap.
fryer.
Yes.
Yeah, right? And they were recording this video of us. It was supposed to be a tutorial on how to clean a grill correctly. And while she was cleaning it, and her hair fell in the deep fryer, and she was like, "You're not going to put this on the internet, are you?" And of course they did, and it blew up and went viral, right? And so she became known as a girl who fried
The
her
corn
hair.
dog girl.
The corn dog girl.
In fact, the first and only volume of this series is called Corn Dog in Chief. It's written by, I think, a brilliant satirist named Mark Russell. I would recommend any of his work. I think he is a brilliant writer in this. He takes some really obscure or nonsensical stuff and makes them feel relevant. But in this, instead of lowering the voting age, as we saw in the original Prez, you can now vote via Twitter, so that you can increase voter participation. I'm sorry, I can't even say that without saying it right. Basically, the American election has gone American Idol. Or X Factor, wherever votes can be bought. And they have these other candidates who they're trying to, well, we can take NASA to Ohio. I want a Navy base in Colorado. They're arguing over how to get these votes. But she slips in because why not the latest viral sensation? Everybody's gonna, I'm just gonna vote for her as a joke. Our vote doesn't matter. And suddenly she becomes president. And everybody that is the game is worried about is because we don't own her.
She wasn't a player.
This was a joke
She was
that went
an
out of
unknown
hand.
player.
And the original Prez kind of makes an appearance in this. I believe they changed his name a little bit. And he's like, I was where you're at, I can help guide you. And there's a scene in this, I believe it's the second issue for this, where he goes, you know how presidents who are hated by everybody stay alive, don't you? They have VPs that people hate more.
Smart plan.
And I can honestly say in American politics, at least recently, as in my lifetime, I can definitely see where that has been a sound business adventure.
Think about the VPs back, 10 years ago.
10, 20, 30 years ago. 40.
That's smart.
I can't go quite 40. I haven't hit that point yet. But, so it becomes this character who, as we've seen that technology has dominated, she is basically a Twitter fad that all of a sudden gets put in power because of a joke. But and sadly this series was cut short, so there's not a ton to talk about for it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 12, but
It was supposed to be 12 issues.
Okay.
We only got we sadly only got 6.
Okay.
There's a special add-on that happened in a Catwoman book of all things later on. But I don't know. An election night Catwoman book that kind of closes it up a little bit better. But she knows she's definitely in over her head. She had no ambitions to be political. All she wanted to do was raise some money because her dad was dying.
Yeah.
And then she decides that she wants to improve things for people. And, well, people don't always want things to be improved for them. I think that's something else that I've found looking at various political cartoons. Sometimes people do like it and like that just a little bit enough that they can complain about it.
Yes, the status quo.
As we're going into the depressing part of this video. The tone is going low. But, I mean, I wish I could talk about her more. She's not as optimistic or strangely naive as Prez.
Right.
At least in his original appearance, not so much in his Golden Boy appearance.
But I think it's also something a little bit refreshing about Beth Ross because she's not groomed to be president or groomed for any political affiliation. She's just a person
just there,
trying to make it.
I do think it's refreshing because Beth kind of creates this atmosphere that everybody can do this. We can, if we strive, even if we luck into a position, we can help other people.
Right. She really shows her ability to survive in a new and tough situation. She either sink or swim, and she definitely started swimming.
Yeah, and to the point that they do want to get rid of her. And I think one of the funner aspects that we've seen throughout this is just how much little things we don't understand is controlling certain aspects to control us. I mean, corporations have always, and positions have always been talked about as controlling political process. We definitely see it more now. There's some acts that have passed through various American, at least, legal systems we can talk about. on a completely different platform. But I do find it interesting that even as far back as '73, corporations have been this
The power behind
this idea, this is power behind
the presidential seat or any
any position of
political
power.
position, right? That impacts the system.
Like there are moments where like, well, I'm going to do this because if I do this, then the company that I own can reap because we'll have a contract. It's depressing to think about. So, do you want to introduce our final candidate?
Oh, Howard the Duck.
Now, how do you know Howard the Duck?
Just from you.
Oh, come on. You had to have sat through that abomination that is the first Marvel movie.
Yes.
You knew Howard the Duck before you met me.
I did know of Howard the Duck.
I am happy to say that I haven't seen Howard the Duck in so many years that I really don't remember that movie. I know it exists, and I know there's an egg on the cover.
Oh.
So, for those of you who don't know, Howard the Duck was actually originally created in the 1970s. He was created, I want to say his last name properly, it's Steve Gerber. I want to say I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be seeing it wrong in my head, I'll admit that. It is very satirical. It is very an attack on 1970s culture. And Howard the Duck is a duck out of water story. God, I wanted to use that one. He literally is accidentally transported to our Earth, well, the Marvel Earth.
Wasn't he also, did he pop up again in the Guardians of the Galaxy?
He is at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. No, maybe. I want to say maybe it's the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
I can't remember which one it was. I remember he made a cameo.
Voiced by Seth Green.
Yeah.
Because, and if you look close enough, he's at the final fight in Endgame. He has a gun. He comes out through one of the portals. Okay. It's a very quick, like, there's Howard.
Is that one of those eggs?
Yes.
Easter egg, you call him.
Yes. He was so closely looked like Donald Duck that Disney actually sued, so they had to put pants on the character. He chain smokes cigars. He is this character that just was kind of a bit raunchy for the 70s comics that was on the newsstand, and he decided that he was the right man for the job. Now, Howard, I can't remember her name correctly, feel bad, had a female sidekick. I mean, that kind of helped guide him through. I mean, there are other connotations. We'll leave that alone. Okay. And he decides that, well, he's the right duck for the job. And there's this fun little political campaign. Steve does like a sit-down interview why he wants to be president and transcripts it for the comic. He has little endorsements from people like Captain America or Iron Man. Iron Man 1 sticks out the most because he's like, Howard has promised me that I'll be able to write my suit off as a business expense, because back in the 70s, Iron Man and Tony Stark weren't known to be the same person. Okay. Iron Man was Tony Stark's bodyguard, which is where the joke at the end of Iron Man comes from. For the longest time, it was, oh, Tony's in trouble. All of a sudden, Iron Man shows up. Iron Man, protecting corporate interests since 1960s. But he runs for president. Okay. And one issue later, he removes himself from the race for a sex scandal.
Oh my God.
And
at least he had the decency to remove himself from office.
But the fact of the matter is that a character like Howard, even he knew that I have a sex scandal in my history. I need to remove myself.
It's time to exit. It's time to exit left.
And to be honest, that's really all you can talk about for Howard. He's a joke character we want to throw in here, showing that various characters in Marvel, in mainstream comic book history, have run for president.
To show that anyone can run for office, but not everyone will make it.
No, thank you, thankfully. Honestly, I wonder how Howard was going to get by the natural citizen clause, because technically he was from the United States, but the United States of a different world. Does that count?
I'm sure we get the right legal minds behind it.
As we come to close, we just want to say thank you for watching us and listening to us ramble about presidential elections and comic books. If you're having trouble deciding, remember, vote for us. We want to lower the price of comic books.
For everyone.
One. This has been Bag and Boarded. Leave a comment below on your favorite presidential take in comic books, or just one that you think would be interesting to see later on.
Please subscribe and also hit the like button.
And ring your notification bell. Have a great day.
See you next time.